Hey, it's John Reed live from Acumatica Summit 2017. And guess who I have? I have the actual CEO of Acumatica, John Roskill here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, John. It's super cool to be with you again.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of blindsided you with the podcast. So I appreciate you jumping on. You talked about some stuff that I think really transcends Acumatica. It's something that a lot of folks who are interested in modern ERP care about. So I want to ask you about that. But first, just for the listeners who aren't as familiar with Acumatica, you're a rising star in cloud ERP. You claim to be the fastest growing cloud ERP company, right?
Yeah. We've been fastest growing for 3 years, and we announced 83% growth for 2016.
Right.
And so that's on top of triple-digit growth the year before, and significantly above all of our competitors in that. So I think that's a pretty easy one to claim when you look at most of these guys are in the mid 20s to low 30s, the NetSuites, the Intacts, or the legacy guys are negative, or flat to negative. So
yeah, when you post that graph up, it makes you look pretty good because you guys are like a skyscraper and these other ERP players are just hanging out at the bottom. So And we're now at the end of day one. You've got another big day tomorrow with a lot of futuristic announcements, I'm told, tomorrow. So that should be interesting. What I wanted to talk to you about, for several years now, I've heard you talk about multi-cloud. I think it's becoming more and more a reality for companies that they're finding value in cloud, but they're also trying to make sense of how they go forward with multiple clouds. And what are your thoughts on sort of managing cloud environments today?
Yeah, so it's interesting from a business user standpoint. I'm amazed at how many people I still meet who are like, the cloud, and have this perception it's all one cloud. And it absolutely isn't. And that's very clear that that's the way the world is going to be now. And by that, I mean, Microsoft has several clouds themselves. They have the Office 365 cloud, they have the Azure cloud. It's interesting, Office 365 doesn't run on Azure, but I won't go there. They have the Power BI cloud. We showed Magento today. They have a cloud, so we announced a Magento partnership. We now also announced the DocuSign partnership. They have a cloud. And so the world is going to be many clouds. And the point I was making in the keynote is that as you think about modernizing your business software environment, it's really important that you think about the set of core components, of which ERP is absolutely one, and making sure that set of core components is going to be able to play in that multi-cloud world. And when I say play, it means it's able to exchange not just information, but be able to integrate at a fairly seamless level, so that from an employee standpoint, it feels like it's one system. That's ultimately what you're trying to get to. And so then we get in a discussion that gets a little techie, which is, well, how do you make that happen? And so you're really looking for vendors that are supporting modern, typically REST API, RESTful endpoints, REST API interfaces, so modern web services. And then tomorrow, we're going to show one, which is something we've been doing with Salesforce. And so these RESTful endpoints, there are also new streaming interfaces that are starting to come to bear, and being able to support that so you can be completely real time on these integrations. So that's the importance of at least the starting point of multi-cloud.
So it's advice you would give to customers, I guess, then would be, you're evaluating ERP really differently than you are in the past, right? Because in the past it was all about, which product has the most functionality or what have you. And now it might be less about a functionality grid and more about, well, how do you play nice with other products? And can we see your API library?
Yeah.
It's a strange question to ask an ERP provider, but that's the world we live in now, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely valid point. And, you do need to look at certainly starting off with the financial capabilities, and then looking into some of the other modules. It's important that distribution or something can do what you need. But looking at the set of APIs, we believe we've got one of the richest. I can't say I've done an intensive comparison against everybody else, but what you find is pretty common in business applications is people build an application and then they do the API as kind of a wrapper around it. And so you can only get at the things on the edges. And that's useful only to a certain point. And that's one of the key differentiators on Acumatica's front, is that we were built as a business platform from day one. Mm-hmm. And so it's not wrapped around the edges. You can get at almost any functionality in Acumatica from a REST endpoint or REST interface. And what that means is you can get at all of our business process workflow engine, all of our approval and notification engines. So you can do very, very powerful, it's more than customizations. I mean, it's full operating the business on top of this platform.
Right. I just did a piece with Eric Kimberling of Panorama Consulting, and he does surveys every year, and he's seeing a lot of trend towards cloud adoption in the mid-market for ERP. But the catch is that a lot of that growth, it's almost 50% according to his latest survey in his constituents, but a lot of them, 27%, they're more interested in what they call cloud as more of a hosted option. It's more about, and Eric was saying, I asked him, like, why don't they go to SaaS? Because SaaS has so many advantages from a multi-tenant perspective, blah, blah, blah. And Eric was saying, well, yeah, but a lot of these folks they perceive SaaS as inflexible, mm-hmm. and they want to keep all their customizations, and so they're basically, it's a lift and shift thing, right? It's not what we call true cloud in the industry. It's basically like put your stuff in a hosted environment, and maybe you save some IT hassles.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. I mean, the moving it to that hosted environment, it lets you potentially save some money on your IT costs. Somebody else is in charge of the infrastructure in a managed service environment, and you certainly get some benefit from doing that, but you're not. You're still running on 30-year-old software. It still has the same constraints that you had, and so that's kind of the challenge, right? Is that when we go in and talk to customers, everybody is typically running something today, and there's going to be effort required in moving. And it's kind of a question of like, when do you want to turn the dial? And what I always go back to is, what are you trying to do with your business? Because just moving to the cloud, there's a bunch of people running around, like, move to the cloud, for the cloud, for the sake of it. It makes no sense, right? So you got to look at, like, what are you trying to do with your business? And I'm sure there are situations that it makes sense to do what you're calling this lift and shift approach.
Right.
Maybe you're selling the business in 3 years. It's no long-term payback. But if you're looking to take your business, it's an active business, you're going to have it for more than 5 years. It makes sense to think about modernizing the entire business platform. Almost everybody who winds up doing this with us on Acumatica that takes that approach from starting off thinking about the modern business processes they want to implement winds up saving at least 2 or 3 people, full-time headcount. And that by itself can justify the cost of the software adoption. But going beyond that, you start to see other productivity benefits. The one I love to highlight, which I still see less than 20% doing, is mobile, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the other reasons to getting in the cloud is that now it's super easy for anybody doing mobile access to get at that stuff.
Right. Which brings you back to the importance of those open APIs. Whereas if you just have some hosted environment somewhere, it might not be easy to access that data or functionality anyway.
Absolutely. And, not to mention, do you get all the benefits of, multi-zone redundancy? Our experience on Amazon are just, stunning. We're getting like 99.987 uptime. And this is stuff that people were paying millions of dollars. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, there was this company called Tandem, and they used to sell these fault-tolerant machines that ran like stock exchanges, and they cost like $10 million. And they would guarantee what they called 5 nines, 99.999, right? And Amazon's getting people that, like, effectively it's free on top of, what they're paying for the computes.
Right. So are we starting to overcome then this juxtaposition that Eric Kimberling was making with me around the relative inflexibility of SaaS? Because Now, to some extent, I think there is some good aspects to a structured business process for folks to adapt to. But now we're seeing more and more I think, flexibility if SaaS is done the right way, right? Which is essentially a platform approach where you can add on, you can extend. So you're not necessarily, if it's not a deal breaker if the vendor, if they do the SaaS ERP right, it's not a deal breaker if you don't have it in your standard functionality. There might be some way to get it.
Yeah, so that's great to bring me back to that. I didn't address that point on the flexibility directly, and we should. I'd say when you talk about SaaS solutions, there clearly are some low-end ones. You can start with entry-level things like Xero and when Intuit's done. And they're not ERP. They can do accounting. They're good at what they do, but they're one level, they're incredibly inflexible because they have very little you can get in and customize.
Right.
Getting into a platform like Acumatica where we sell Acumatica in both public and private cloud environments. It's one of our differentiators. And so the degree of flexibility doesn't vary in that. You can do the same things you can do in a private cloud as you can in the public cloud. So the public cloud isn't limiting flexibility. And so that's just one of the strengths of Acumatica. And then as you start to look at doing building your system, like you could very easily we could start a business today and say, all right, I'm going to buy Office 365 from Microsoft. I'm going to buy Acumatica. I'm going to buy an HR solution. It could be Zenefits on the low end. It could be Workday on the high end. It could be, we announced a partnership today with Infinity HR. And then those three systems together would all come basically out of the box with integration. Acumatica integrates with Office 365. The Infinity HR and Zenefits we have integrations with. So you've already got your three core. And then what else might you want would be a vertical solution. And depending on what vertical you're in. And again, we announced a few verticals today. We have a field service edition that will cover, I don't know, it's probably 20% of the businesses in the country can start to customize in that. And so, you're getting into a system that is completely customizable for what your needs of your business and all in the cloud.
Well, in my view, if in the mid-market, if you've been talking about cloud ERP starting to take on the same level of adoption as HCM and CRM. It's not there yet, but that's the trend. It's going to have to be more vertical. It can't be just generic out-of-the-box ERP if that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. But in our case, we count on our channel partners for that. Mm-hmm. We have partners in every vertical industry, from government to nonprofit to working in high tech and transportation to discrete manufacturing, and the one we were joking about earlier was cannabis. The cannabis industry is just exploding right now.
Acumatica is doing well in cannabis.
Yeah, no, we've got
cloud ERP.
We've got most of the top growers in the country at this point
which turns out to be a fairly complex business in a lot of ways. Despite we might joke, but it really is.
No, I mean it's full out. It's being treated like a medical not a supplement but a true pharmaceutical in that there are batches and they have to be able to do recalls and is government tracking, and as plants move from seed to seedling to plant, they actually all have to have government track tag numbers on it. This is the stuff I've learned from visiting some of these guys. Yeah. And so you have to be able to move a product through inventory stages, basically work in process, and you need full ERP to do this stuff.
You absolutely do. So, I think I'm going to get kicked out of this room in a sec for your next meeting, but just real quick. A lot of things seem to be going well. What's the biggest challenge for Acumatica in the year to come?
Well, it usually comes down to our own ability to execute. And as the CEO, one of the things I try to focus in on is not trying to do too many things. It's super clear that we've got a set of ISVs that are really important. And these are guys like Magento or Jazz Systems on the manufacturing side. And so we're really, what we're doing with these editions, like the Field Service Edition or the Commerce Edition, is we're working to go even that next stage by putting them together in a skewed up configuration so that the confidence level that partners and customers can have out of the gate is super high.
I suppose before we wrap, I should congratulate you. You said that 1.5 million people attended the show this year, and there's no way to dispute the number, right?
Yeah, I think it's by far the most well-attended technology show in the world, and the satellite pictures will confirm it.
We'll confirm it, absolutely. We're looking forward to those. Thanks a lot for your time, John.
All right. Thanks, John. Always good to see you.
Yeah.